Hello everyone, this is part 8 of What If Naruto Was Adopted in a Good Home, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Anko flew through the forest of death as she sought out her former teacher. She had to find him before he ruined anyone else's life. He had already killed a Kusa team without their notice, so what else had he done before they'd finally picked up on his presence? The snake mistress reviewed what she knew of her old sensei. Contrary to popular belief, she didn't know the man better than anyone else. She knew more than most, but that title went to Sarutobi, the traitor's old sensei, or maybe one of his old teammates, Jiraiya or Tsunade. Even though she had trained under him, and thought she had gotten close, she knew he was fooling her just as much as everyone else. She had a few insights into his character that others didn't, but she really just knew what he had taught her, and nothing of his personal life. Then again, who really knew what went on in the malevolent mind of Orochimaru? However, Anko did know Orochimaru's two greatest goals, immortality, and mastery of all the jutsu in the world. But that didn't explain why he was back in Konoha. It wasn't like they had any new jutsu that he couldn't have found elsewhere. In fact, Konoha hadn't had any mass influxes of jutsu since the Uchiha clan was said. That's it. Anko had long asked for any new information on Orochimaru, and provided it wouldn't make her run off after him immediately, the Sandaime usually gave it to her. He hadn't had it perfected back when he had abandoned Konoha, but this was the reason Anko knew about the soul transfer technique that Orochimaru was basing his immortality on. If Orochimaru wanted to learn all the techniques in the world, the Uchiha bloodline would make it infinitely easier. Coupled with the fact that Orochimaru could change boss, that meant he was likely after Sasuke, Naruto's teammate. Orochimaru didn't much mind taking out anyone in his way if it meant he got what he wanted. Anko ran faster. Ibiki looked at the report Kotetsu had just given him. Yakushi Kabuto was an unremarkable ninja, somewhat gifted in medical jutsu, but really just blended in with the crowd. He was said to be quiet and well-mannered, as well as helpful to his fellow genin when they needed, though many doubted he would amount to anything. Kabuto had been found as a young boy on battlefield at Bellflower Pass, where almost everyone on both sides had been said. He was the only one unmarked. No one knew why, but a Konoha Mednin, now took him on as a ward, and trained him. He had failed the academy exams once before passing on his second try. After some time doing basic missions, Kabuto had taken the Chunin exams 7 times, including the current one. Ibiki knew that Kabuto needed to be looked at. He had passed under the radar until Naruto had pointed him out, but Ibiki was on the case now. Whether or not Kabuto was a spy, which he most likely was, he needed to be questioned. Preferably by Ibiki himself. He wanted this one. It felt like it was important. Ibiki sighed and found the best source of information on missing nin he had. Unfortunately, that source was currently at the hot springs. Running over the familiar rooftops of Konoha, he planned how to approach this. He doubted he could fool his source into revealing it accidentally, and getting the source to break would take too long, and he didn't have his toys with him at the moment. Straightforward would probably be the best bet. Once in the hot springs proper, everyone but he and his source left. Ibiki knew his scars bothered some people, but he couldn't care less. He wasn't proud of them, but wasn't about to hide them because he was ashamed, either. There had been one Junin who remained at first, but left after Ibiki motioned to him subtly. So Zabuza, what can you tell me about Orochimaru? Zabuza looked up. Apparently, he had been taking a nap. Why do you want to know? He asked through his bandages. Ibiki set up his privacy jutsu. He could never thank his mentor enough for teaching it to him. I have a person I'm looking into. I need to know about Orochimaru, more specifically, any subordinates you know about. What do I get out of this? Tell me what you want, and I'll see what I can do. Nothing outrageous. Normally, Ibiki never bargained, but normally, he wasn't trying to get information out of an ally. Zabuza thought for a minute. Ibiki actually started to wonder if he had fallen back asleep. Put in a good word with Anko, and I'll tell you what I know. Anko. Yeah, Anko, you know, lives in the same house as us, uses snake jutsu, really nice body, funny as S. Anko. I know Anko. I want to know why. Zabuza shrugged. We've been dancing around each other since we met in Wave. We have common interests, and she can hold her own in a fight. Not to mention she's got a cur form. Abiki was silent. They hadn't exactly been quiet about their flirting, but that was all Abiki was hoping it was. He didn't have feelings for Anko, but they had gotten close after years of living and working together. If you hurt her, you'll have to answer to me. Zabuza snorted and Abiki felt insulted. You'll have to take a number. If I ever hurt her, she'd kick my ass for doing so, and then I'd have to deal with a pissed off Naruto. And frankly, I'm not looking to test how sea serpents stand up to foxes in a fight. Abiki laughed deeply. He had heard what Anko did to Kakashi, so he knew she could take on Zabuza. He almost wanted to see Zabuza screw up just to see the carnage. Fine, I'll talk to her. But if she doesn't want to do anything with it, I'm not going past it. Now what do you know? Zabuza sighed and stretched, settling in for a deeper conversation. First off, I don't know a whole lot about him. I stay the hell away types like him. Safer that way. From what I do know, he's started something big recently. I heard he's running that new village Oto out of Ricefield country. Apparently, he has no problem sacrificing people, even if they're strong, as long as it saves his hide. What do you know about any subordinates? I don't know anything about who anyone is. Like I said, I want nothing to do with that freak. I do know he likes to get them young. Kinda creepy, but I guess they're easier to mold if you find them at that age. By the time they're combat ready, they're totally loyal to him. I ran into one team a while back when I was up that way, and they were all, Orochimaru-sama this, and, Orochimaru-sama that, and, I must help him achieve his dreams. I don't need that. Zabuza stared Abiki straight in the eyes. Don't you say anything about Haku. I never meant for her to take it to that level. Naruto straightened her out though. The conversation lasted longer than Abiki expected, and Zabuza gave him some information he wasn't expecting on people who weren't Orochimaru, though he never got any proof that Kabuto was working with Konoha's greatest enemy. Anko stopped on a seemingly random tree branch and 4 kunai immediately dropped into her hand. Come on out, sensei, she spat in a mocking tone. So long since we've seen each other, and you're so cold to me, my dear Anko-chan, Orochimaru smirked as he materialized from inside a tree. It's almost as if you don't like me. There was a pause, and Anko was about to retort, but Orochimaru spoke first. Of course, if what your little brother was spouting earlier was true, that might be true. He laughed coldly as Anko froze. And was surprised as Anko appeared directly in front of him before he could sense, sinking a kunai in his gut. She sped savagely, and it was only because of Orochimaru's years of experience that it wasn't a fatal strike. Anko esped a kunai through his hand and grabbed his other, forcing it into a seal he knew all too well, having invented it specifically for this technique many years ago. He replaced himself as fast as he could, knowing he could no longer play with Anko as he once could. She had gotten better, he had known, but there was some other factor in play to give her such strength. His clone puffed back into nothingness before Anko completed the technique, and Orochimaru concentrated on her dormant curse seal, forcing his chakra to react with it in a specific pattern. He couldn't K her through the curse seal, he hadn't perfected it to that point when she had gotten his gift. However, he was able to cause her severe pain throughout her entire body, which was what he was doing now. Even so, she was still moving towards him slowly, the determination on her face overriding all else. What are you here for, bastard? Anko bit out through the pain. Orochimaru sped off his false face, the one that was mostly gone now anyway. Such language, my dear Anko-chan. What would your mother say? His voice went from scolding to mocking. Oh, that's right, she's S isn't she? What are you? Anko couldn't finish for the agony. Just a little recruitment drive. This village has always turned out some outstanding ninja. Like myself. Too bad most end up realizing life was better spent elsewhere. Orochimaru concentrated on creating the little healing chakra he could. His chakra control was exceptional, however, his chakra was too corrupt by this point to be much good for medical procedures. Still, it would do until he could find Kabuto. I've just finished, actually. I just gave the most promising one a curse seal, just like yours. Just a 1 in 10 chance he'll survive, but if he doesn't, he wasn't worth my time anyway. What? Sweat was now pouring off of Anko in waterfalls. I have a good feeling about him though. He's strong, unlike you were. After all, he does possess the blood of the genius Uchiha clan. Very beautiful, as well, the perfect vessel for me. Anko was almost passed out at this point, but she was only a foot from Orochimaru, and she had a kunai in hand. As for the boy who called you his older sister, he should be S by now. He was actually a bit of fun before I SD him wide open. And you know about the poison of Kusanagi, so you know his chances of still being alive. Even if he is still alive, it won't be for long, and with the agony Kusanagi's poison causes, he'll wish he was. Orochimaru's voice, where it had been teasing, turned cold. Don't stop this exam. I'm having too much fun. Orochimaru started to sink into the tree. If you stop it, I will destroy Konoha completely. Shino led his team through trees of the Forest of Death. As much as Kiba liked to dispute it, Shino was the true leader of Team 8, excluding Kurenai. Kiba was loud, but didn't have the necessary qualities to lead, at least not yet. Shino even allowed Kiba to look like he was leading at times. However, when it came time to truly lead his team, Shino stepped in. Sometimes, Shino wondered what would have happened if Naruto hadn't sat with him at lunch that day back in the academy. It was because of Naruto that he was open enough to lead the team, rather than being so cut off from the rest of the world simply because no one else wanted to be around him. If Naruto hadn't sat with him that day, he might have ended up a closed-off, emotionless bug user, with no one close to him outside the clan. No, that would never have happened. As good a friend Naruto was, it wasn't logical to think that he had that much of an impact on his development. Kiba motioned that he smelled another team close by, and Hinata confirmed this with her Byakugan. There were 2 teams, actually, as Team 8 concealed themselves nearby to collect information on the teams. It was good luck that they had already gotten their need scroll through the assistance of a colony of Konoha forest leeches and they didn't really have to fight at all. However, being a recon team, they weren't about to pass up an opportunity to see 2 competing teams in action. The tallest in the clearing, the leader of the rain team, spoke first. Some little kids out here playing ninja, huh boys? Why don't you kids just give us your scroll and run along now? The tall nin smirked cruelly. But you, girly, you can stay with me. What the F, you pervert. Temari started to go for her fan, but Gaara forestalled her with a simple hand gesture. Give us your scroll, and I won't K you, Gaara said in his eerie monotone. The rain team burst out in raucous laughter. Wahahaha. You actually think you guys can stand against us? Hidden Sand is the weakest village in the exams, and the only reason you still have a cage is because of tradition. Take this. Juro Senbon. The leader of the rain team tossed half a dozen umbrellas in the air, spinning as they hovered. Hundreds of Senbon needles shot down at Gaara, who simply stood there, arms crossed, looking vaguely annoyed. There's no way to escape this jutsu. The rain leader cackled. All the Senbon are controlled by my chakra, so no matter where you go, I'll be able to get you. The dust cloud that kicked up from the attack cleared, and Gaara was still standing in the same spot, with the same look on his face, surrounded by a partial sand sphere. Is that all? The boy asked emotionlessly. And no way. Just a few days ago, I would have ked you just for being here. Now I'll K you because you insulted me, my village, and threatened my team. You made it rain needles. I'll make it rain blood. Gaara formed a hand seal and thrust his hand forward. Sabaku Ryu. Sand ran up the body of the rain leader, who immediately started struggling, to no avail. The sand quickly covered him completely. If left alone, he would suffocate to death. Fortunately, Gaara was more merciful than that. He would grant him an instant, painless death. Gaara clenched his fist. Sabaku so-so. The sand imploded, ked the genin instantly. After seeing their comrade fall so easily, the other 2 threw their scroll down, and scampered. Gaara looked at them and grunted, letting them leave. He knew his sand could have caught them, but remembered the old man's words about how he wasn't a monster. If Uzumaki wasn't a monster, he wouldn't be one either. It was the least he could do for the first person to do something for him without expecting anything in return. Gaara's sand picked up the scroll and brought it over to him. After pocketing it, Gaara turned back to his siblings. You didn't kill the other two, Kankuro said, though it sounded much more like a question. No, I didn't. I'm no longer a monster. Temari looked at her little brother fondly. She decided she would have to thank that Naruto kid when she saw him again. As the Sand siblings leapt away, Shino turned to his teammates. We need to stay away from those guys, Kiba said. Akamaru was shaking from the scent of that guy's power. Shino nodded. Naruto mentioned that team to me. If we stay away from them, they should not bother us. The summoned foxes had run out of chakra a little over an hour ago, mainly because they had been summoned for a battle, something that should have just been a short period of time, and it was just not the way they were expecting, not guard duty. Naruto would have given them more chakra if they had been. Sakura didn't like the foxes, but they had made her feel a bit safer. At least she hadn't been alone. Now all she could do was wait until they woke up. Sakura looked over at the packs the fox had brought, the ones that had the things needed for her to bandage up Naruto. It had said that Naruto was the one who had gotten them, and the scroll they needed to enter the tower, after beating a team from Kiri. Not long after bandaging Naruto, another fox reported seeing the team that had the same scents as the ones on the bags tied up and unconscious. Naruto's scent was apparently in that clearing as well. Just how strong was Naruto anyway, if he was able to take out a whole team on his own? And from the mist, too. Kirigakure was not the largest or most powerful village of the Great Five, only Suna was smaller, but they did hold the title of the most vicious. Their ninja was said to fight to the end, no matter the outcome. There's no way the S-Last would be able to take out a full genin team from Kiri by himself. But, there was also no way the S-Last could summon, especially not that many. Not even Sasuke-kun, the number one rookie, could summon. But that didn't change the fact that she had seen Naruto do it. And Sakura knew there wasn't a summoning contract with foxes. When they had discussed summoning at the academy, the instructors had told them all the known contracts, whether Konoha held them or not. Foxes weren't on there at all. So how could Naruto summon them? She doubted Konoha simply didn't know about the contract. It was possible, but unlikely. And Naruto had never displayed that kind of power before, ever. Not even when he sparred with Sasuke-kun did he go that far. She had always assumed that he was going all out and couldn't beat the strongest of the graduating class, but now she wondered how much he had been holding back. Sakura tossed a kunai at a squirrel that was coming close to her ground-level trap so it wouldn't set it off. She had made that one as a setup for her aerial trap. It was fairly obvious, so she was expecting people to notice it, but if they didn't, so much the better. Rustling in the bushes on the other side of the clearing caught her attention. Uchiha Sasuke, the one covered in bandages called as the Oto team, emerged from their hiding place. We're here to fight you. Get out here, coward. Sakura didn't know what to do. She knew she couldn't take on a team by herself, even if they had been the weakest in the exam. She doubted she'd be able to take on even Ino Pig's team by herself. And this team had taken down Kabuto, someone who had a lot more experience than her. She wished Sasuke-kun and Naruto were awake. Zaku started walking towards the cave of overgrown tree roots where they knew the team was waiting. He had better things to do than challenge stupid tree huggers like this. This Sasuke kid was probably all talk anyway. Zaku. Dosu snapped. Watch what you're doing. Overturned soil, and the fact that there's no grass here, it's an obvious trap. But traps don't do any good if they can be seen, little girl. The sound trio jumped into the air, intent on evading the trap that way. A giant log started swinging down at them, with no way to change their course. Sakura cheered internally for a moment before Dosu extended his arm and obliterated the log completely. The sound trio smirked triumphantly. Sakura cut a string that was held taut next to her. A trio of kunai rocketed toward Kin, who barely managed to duck. They lodged in the trunk of a tree, and another click was heard as another barrage of kunai was launched. Dosu blocked those with the metal object on his arm, and the three Otonin landed. Only to have to jump back to avoid the shuriken that shot at them from the sides. Unfortunately for them, this left them right where Sakura wanted them. On the pressure-sensitive ground trap they had noticed in the beginning. Boom. The sound trio wasn't directly on top of the trap, just of the edge of trigger area, so they didn't but the explosion was still big enough to send them flying from the force, and singe them slightly from the heat. Naruto stirred as the explosion went off, and Sakura felt a faint flash of hope. If he was waking up, all she had to do was hold him off until then. All Naruto had to do was pull out some of that power she had seen from him when he fought Orochimaru. Sakura still shivered at the thought of S-class criminal, and they would definitely be safe. Sakura rolled out of her hiding place, tossing kunai at the genin. They rolled out of the way, and Zaku rolled once more as a green blur blew by him. Lee stopped and skidded to a stop and came back through with a kick, Zaku barely dodging again. Who are you? Dosu asked once Zaku jumped back out of Lee's range. I am the second coming of Konoha's beautiful green beast, Rock Lee. And as I pledged when we were in Wave, I will protect Sakura-chan with my life. Lee. Sakura glanced back at Naruto, who looked halfway awake now. Naruto. She hissed. Get up. Naruto jerked and his eyes shot open as he hissed in pain. Naruto's blood was rebelling against him. He had apparently been bandaged, and that had saved him from spilling his organs, but Kusanagi's poison was legendary as something that killed you no matter what. Tsunade herself said the only way to heal it was with her special Suzu Seisei, and even then she wouldn't want risking it getting too far into her system. Apparently, merging with the most powerful demon in the world would allow you to survive it too. Kyuubi had not allowed Naruto's disguise to fall while he worked out the poison, and for that Naruto was grateful. However, that also meant Kyuubi wasn't quite done, and so Naruto felt like acid was eating through his entire body even now, after most of the poison was gone. It was gonna suck to move around. Kit, you may want to get up. The pink-haired girl is in trouble, and the Uchiha is still unconscious. Naruto groaned and grunted as he staggered over to the opening between the tree roots. Knock it off, he demanded, hoping it would work, but not really thinking it would. Surprisingly, everyone did indeed stop. Lee was on the ground with blood leaking from his ears, and Sakura had apparently just cut off her hair and done a charge at Zaku. Ino, Shikamaru, and Chuji were frozen in mid-leap as they were coming out of the bushes. I'm in there trying to get some rest so I can clear the poison out of my system, and you're all out here making a bunch of noise. Shut up. Dosu and Kin just looked at each other, dumbfounded. Zaku, however, had no such problem continuing running his mouth. Noise. Huh. Well, try this on for size. Zankua. Instead of trying to run out of the way of the air blast, Naruto quickly ducked back into the hollow and pressed himself against the wall, waiting the attack out. What the hell? Scaredy cat, get out here and fight like a man. Naruto grabbed a few kunai and explosive tags from the Kiri team's bags, noticing Sakura had depleted the supplies they had in there somewhat. Probably for traps, he decided. Dashing outside, or at least as fast as he could dash with as much pain as he was in, he tossed the kunai at the feet of the sound trio. They jumped away, but the explosion masked Naruto's escape as he jumped into the trees. Coward, get back out here, Zaku called as he readied his hands for another attack. Before Naruto had a chance to start his next attack, an explosion of twisted chakra came from the hollow where Sasuke was. The Uchiha stalked outside, a half-crazed look in his eyes and black flames covering half of his body, and spreading. This power. Sasuke-kun, your body, Sakura gasped. Sasuke looked at his curse seal-covered hand, Sharingan activated. Don't worry, he said softly. I feel more powerful than ever. This great power is overflowing. Sasuke snapped his attention to the sound trio. He gave it to me. I understand now. I am an Avenger, and I must gain power, even going to the devil himself. Sasuke's eyes started spinning slowly. You did this. Without saying anything else, Sasuke disappeared, reappearing in front of Dosu, his fist sunk in the other genin's stomach. Sasuke blurred again and left Dosu to crumple to the ground. Take this, you tattooed freak. Zankyo Kakua. Zaku shot his most powerful attack at Sasuke, who had just reappeared in front of Sakura. Nothing even left of that bastard. Sakura was deposited at Ino's side as Sasuke grabbed Zaku's arms and wrenched them back, taunting him. Seconds later, a sickening snap filled the air as Sasuke pushed them past the breaking point. Pushing Zaku to the ground, Sasuke turned to Kin, but couldn't go any further. Kage main no jutsu, success. Shikamaru gloated as the technique connected. Sorry Sasuke, but I can't let a girl get beat up, even if it's troublesome to stop you, he said lazily. Naruto dove out of the trees and landed in front of his teammate. You beat them, team. She didn't even do anything. No, I must test this power, Sasuke shouted. Naruto nodded understandingly, shocking everyone there. Shikamaru almost let up on his technique. Naruto grabbed his teammate by the shoulders and looked him square in the eye. Sweet dreams, team, he said just before he slammed his forehead in the bridge of Sasuke's nose. Sasuke slumped into unconsciousness as Shikamaru released his jutsu. Kin took out the scroll they were carrying and placed it on the ground before picking up her two teammates. Your team is strong, and we can't beat you right now. I offer you our scroll to let us leave. But if we encounter each other in these exams again, we will not run. Sakura looked like she was about to ask something, but Kin disappeared into the forest before she could get it out. So, what happened while I was out? Naruto asked with a grin, looking at Sakura's disheveled state and now ragged hair. Sakura hissed venomously before she moved over to Ino, who had just offered to clean up the rough job the kunai had done on her best friend's hair. Absently reactivating his gravity seal, Naruto walked over to Shikamaru and Chuji, who had nothing to do until Ino got done with Sakura. Tenten and Neji had already left with Lee after the weapons mistress gave him a look that told him they were going to have a talk later. You guys got your scroll yet? Naruto asked casually. We got an extra heaven scroll from a scouting Takinin, but we need an earth scroll to get into the tower, Shikamaru explained. Naruto shrugged. You can have the one that was just left by that Oto girl if you want. I got the scroll we needed from a Kiri team back before we were attacked. Yeah, who did that to you, anyway? Chuji asked, pointing to the long bandage on Naruto's front. He knew Naruto was strong, and if there was someone who could beat him in the forest, that was scary. Orochimaru, Naruto spat, his name sounding like a curse. Bastard cut his way through half the Kitsune Shutai before he SD me open. Fing poison still burns, he explained with a grimace. You faced down the most famous missing nin Konoha has, and you're still alive. Shikamaru asked with some disbelief. Naruto nodded. Troublesome. Ino finished up with Sakura's hair and her team left. Naruto dragged Sasuke back into the tree hollow, Sakura looking at him irritably. Apparently, he wasn't giving her Sasuke-kun the proper respect by dragging him around by his ankle, but the blonde didn't much care. After a few minutes, Sakura spoke up. Naruto, how'd you get so strong all of a sudden? And how can you summon? That's not a genin level SK, we're not supposed to have enough chakra to attempt it until we're at least high level chunin, and foxes weren't on the list of known contracts when we learned about them in the academy. Naruto looked at the ground, not answering for a full minute. Just as Sakura was about to ask again, Naruto spoke up. Sakura, I didn't get as strong as I did all of a sudden. I've just never had to show it in front of you before. I've trained in some way or another every single day since I was 7 years old, even if it was just reading up on something new. As for summoning, I've always had an unnaturally high chakra reserve for my age. I've trained that so it's even higher. That's why I have enough chakra to summon. And I can summon foxes because of the training trip I took a few months back. Beyond that, I can't tell you. Why not? We're teammates, and we shouldn't have secrets like this from each other, Sakura said heatedly. Naruto sighed heavily. Sakura, some things need to remain secret. And when I said I couldn't tell you, I meant it. It's an S-class secret. I could break it without much trouble, because it's about me, but it's still an S-class secret. Besides, you have never been particularly nice to me. You've tolerated me, and treated me worse than I deserved. You don't need to know, and if you ever do, I'll tell you. Beyond that, don't worry about it. And as for teammates not having secrets from each other, why don't you ask Sasuke team why he didn't tell us when he activated his bloodline? Sakura didn't have an answer for that, so she was incredibly relieved when Sasuke started waking up. However, it would give her something to think about. Ibiki entered the tower in the center of the Forest of Death, and set about finding Anko. He needed to tell her his findings, mainly so she wouldn't hurt him, and he also had to, he shuddered, talk Zabuza up to her. Surprisingly, he found her in the infirmary, with a puffy-eyed Tsunade running a scan over her. You're doing better, but you need to stay in bed for another day. After that, you can start moving around. That attack did more to you than you thought, and if I see you out of this bed, I'll make you stay in it longer. Understand? Fine, Anko grumbled unhappily. What the hell did this to you? I didn't know there was anything in this forest that you couldn't handle, Ibiki said without preamble as soon as left the room. I met up with my sensei in the forest, Anko said bitterly. Ibiki started. Nothing could affect Anko quite like her old sensei. And while Zabu's information said Orochimaru was planning something big, nothing pointed towards the traitorous Sannin actually coming back to Konoha. I tried to K him, she continued. That wasn't a big surprise. Anko had wanted to K Orochimaru for a long time. He said he K'd Naruto-kun. She almost wailed, tears suddenly falling. Apparently, she had been holding this in. The words didn't register for a moment, but when they did, Ibiki felt something inside him break. Though often seen as cold and aloof, Ibiki was as close to Naruto as anyone could be. The blonde boy had wormed his way into Ibiki's heart over the years, and to lose him would be horrible. When he said he K'd him, I just went nuts, and I almost K'd him, but I used AS Jutsu to do it, and I realized he was a clone just in time to stop it. But he gave the Uchiha a curse seal and said he SD Naruto-kun open. He's S. Naruto said he'd always be here, and that he'd never leave me, and now he's gone. He's always been here. Ibiki stopped listening as Anko ranted, becoming more incoherent as time passed, eventually dissolving completely into tears. He just sat there, numb. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura pushed open the door to the tower, none of them talking. Sakura was musing about what Naruto had said earlier, and Sasuke was thinking about the power he had felt earlier, and how weak he was now in comparison. Naruto was merely hoping there was a hospital wing in the tower so he could get the remnants of the poison out of his system. It wasn't as bad as it was an hour ago, but it was still impeding his performance, and the sooner it was out, the sooner he could relax. He was just glad they hadn't run into any other teams on their way here. After reading the quote on the wall, Naruto decided they would need to open the scrolls, but Sakura and Sasuke didn't agree right away. He was able to convince them, and after tossing the two smoking scrolls together, Iruka popped into view. He congratulated them on passing the second test with 2 days to spare, and explained the quote to them. Iruka led them to their rooms and after that showed Sasuke and Naruto to the infirmary. Sasuke was led into another room so a mednin could fix his nose, a quick and easy procedure. Most mednin could easily fix noses and fingers due to the common training accidents of a shinobi village. Naruto found himself in a room with a crying Anko and a stoic Ibiki. Hey Nei-chan, what's wrong? He asked, very concerned. Nothing could make his adoptive sister cry, almost nothing anyway. Anko looked up at Naruto through her tears, disbelief written over her face. Moments later though, Anko tackled the blonde and was clutching him close to her as they lay on the ground, thanking Kami and everyone else she could think of, incoherent with happiness. Then she smacked him on the head for doing something as stupid as challenging Orochimaru. What the hell were you thinking? I wasn't about to let him get away. What happened to you? I met up with Orochimaru and he told me he had K'd you, so I tried to K him. Stupid Nei-chan. I'd never forgive you if you got yourself K'd going after him, Naruto said, trailing off towards the end. Anko rubbed her hand through his hair fondly and smirked. Well, we'll just have to get stronger, won't we? She hugged him tightly again, mashing his face to her chest, causing him to struggle. Ibiki blinked as he brought himself back to reality enough to see that Anko wasn't on the bed anymore. Looking around confused, he saw her hugging the boy who was family to him. Sometimes a little brother, sometimes a son, but always family. Ibiki's spirit soared and the scarred man smiled a genuine smile for the first time in quite some time. Tsunade had come in to heal the person she had been told had been attacked by Orochimaru, and while she had been expecting a mangled near-S body, for that's often all her former teammate left if he didn't outright KO, she most certainly didn't expect to see the boy Anko had only hours ago told her was S, the boy she was certain was another victim of her cursed N-lace. She kissed Naruto on the forehead before wrapped him up in a bone-crushing hug and nearly suffocated him with her bosom as she thanked him for not being S. She then punched him on the top of the head for being stupid enough to try to fight Orochimaru. Naruto wasn't sure what was worse. Tsunade and Anko trying to smother him with their BS or beating him unconscious with their fists. After picking himself up, he showed her the gash Orochimaru put in him. Shizune and Tsunade grimaced at the sight. The wound had closed thanks to Naruto's healing ability, but it was still a sickly green from the poison. Since it had been diluted somewhat, Soon had got to removing it with an advanced poison removal jutsu. 20 minutes later, Naruto was good as new with strict orders not to do any physical training until the end of the second test. Soon had mentioned she was going to rest up to wait for her chakra to return. Removing Kusanagi's poison, even just the remnants, took more out of her than she thought it would. But before she left, she said she had something she needed Naruto to do. Ibiki called Naruto back, and when no one was looking, gave him a tight hug, thanking him for staying alive. It went without saying neither of them would mention it ever again. Naruto followed Tsunade down the hall before stopping a seemingly random door. Fix her, was all the instruction he got before being shoved unceremoniously through the door and heard the doorknob being sped off behind him. Naruto scowled at the closed door, annoyed at having been locked in. Not that a door like that would stop him for very long, any ninja worth his pay could easily break it down, but it was still rude. He turned back to the dark room, seeing a shuddering figure laying on the bed. He slowly made his way over to them, trying to make sure he wouldn't startle them. It wasn't a good idea to startle someone in a ninja village, no matter how good you were. As he got closer, Naruto realized it was Haku, sobbing. He sat on the edge of the bed and placed a hand on her back. Naruto knew it was serious when she didn't react. Haku-chan, what's wrong? Nothing could be heard except for Haku's sniffles for a moment. I couldn't save him, she said quietly, barely loud enough to be heard. I should have been able to save him, but I wasn't. What are you talking about? Who couldn't you save? Naruto-kun, he was Ked. Naruto quirked an eyebrow. Didn't she recognize his voice? Maybe she wasn't quite all there after hearing he'd been attacked by Orochimaru. And if he hadn't been able to heal as much as he had, he probably would be S now, so he supposed it did make sense. However, now he had to convince Haku that he was actually alive, and not a figment of her imagination or a particularly cruel genjutsu. No, Naruto didn't S, I'm right here, Haku-chan. Yes he did, you're not real. You can't be real, Naruto-kun's S. Even after psychology lessons from Ibiki, Naruto wasn't the best at dealing with sad or distraught people. Happy people, angry people, nervous people, those were all easy, but sad people were particularly difficult. So, Naruto decided to do what he always did, go with his gut and make it up as he goes along. Naruto grabbed Haku in a hug and squeezed her tight, forcing her to look at him. Does that feel like I'm not real? Trust me, I'm here. Genjutsu, Haku murmured, but Naruto could see she was beginning to believe he hadn't actually SD. If I'm a genjutsu, why don't you dispel me? Haku was silent for a moment, obviously searching for a response before forming a half seal and flaring her chakra for a full 10 seconds. Naruto didn't even shimmer. Naruto-kun, she whispered, still disbelieving slightly. You didn't really think that dirty old snake could really beat me, did you? He asked with fox grin. Naruto-kun, Haku shouted, finally shaking her doubts completely. No one could quite recreate that smile, not with the emotion he put behind it. She tackled him off the bed and held him tightly, breathing in his scent. She looked up at his harsh wince, and loosened her hold on him, hearing a sigh of relief. She rolled his shirt up, eyes widening as the scar came into view. Once it was fully revealed, Haku looked up at Naruto, her eyes demanding an explanation. He let nervous laugh escape as he scratched the back of his head, stalling for time. I thought you knew. I do. I want to hear it from you, she said firmly, making it clear Naruto wasn't getting away clean from this. Well, I ended up getting separated from Sasuke and Sakura, and after I was eaten by one of Orochimaru's snakes. You were eaten? Haku demanded frostily. No one ever mentioned that. I don't think I told anyone else. But that's not the important part. You were eaten. Of course it's important. Naruto froze under Haku's gaze, and decided sharing as much information as possible was a good idea, just so she wouldn't find out from someone else secondhand. I blew the snake up with a ton of clones, and if that didn't work I could have summoned a fox to tear the Shuri bastard apart. But anyway, since I was covered in snake guts, I had to wash myself off if I had any chance of hiding myself, so I was late getting back to Sasuke and Sakura, right? I see, Haku said slowly, wanting more information. Well, when I got back to them, I saw Orochimaru finish up giving Sasuke a curse seal, and Sakura was looking kinda beat up too. I don't really like them too much, but I never wanted anything like Orochimaru to happen to them. That, combined with how much I already want to K him, and I kind of lost it. Define, lost it. It wasn't a suggestion. I summoned the Kitsune Shutai and had already released my gravity seal, Naruto said quietly. What's the Kitsune Shutai? Naruto looked anywhere but Haku. About 150 foxes who do nothing but train to be the best fighters all day long. And Orochimaru kind of threw up a sword and hacked through half of them before I could even react. I was SD open before I knew it. Then he ran off. I think he just didn't want to be found by Anbu or something. Haku Street USD the scar a moment longer before locking on Naruto's face. What? Is there something in my teeth? Haku dipped her head down and gave him a very firm close mouth kiss on the lips, not breaking away even as Naruto's eyes widened. Naruto had never had positive contact like this before. Ibiki wasn't much for any kind of contact, but he had his reasons, and Naruto understood them. Anko was certainly affectionate, and liked giving him the hugs and kisses that a normal sister would, but that was nothing like this. There was huge difference between one of Anko's kisses to the forehead and what Haku was doing now. Haku broke away smiling 30 seconds later, ecstatic that she was able to kiss Naruto like that and get away with it. The only other time she had gotten close to doing that, Zabuza had walked in, looked at him, grabbed Naruto by the back of his coat and tossed him in the river. None of them ever mentioned it after that, though Zabuza had woken up outlined in senbon needles the next day. What was that for? Naruto asked softly. Not that I'm arguing with it, mind you. Just wanted to know what I did to earn that. Haku's smile never faded as she shook her head. Why did you attack Orochimaru? You knew you wouldn't have been able to win. He shrugged. He did a lot to hurt Anko Nei-chan a long time ago, and he had just hurt Sakura and Sasuke. I wasn't about to let him get away with that. You fought for your precious people. That should be rewarded. Well, if it'll get me more of those, I'll do just about anything. Haku laughed lightly and kissed him on the corner of the mouth. As you wish, Naruto-kun. The second test finally ended, and Naruto and Haku had only run into each other once more. It wasn't that they couldn't find one another, that was simple enough. Rather, Anko had walked in on him sharing a brief kiss and wouldn't stop teasing him about it. It was even worse if they were together. As Haku had other duties she needed to attend to, and Naruto wanted to visit with his friends, it was easier to stay apart. The contestants gathered in the auditorium of the tower, a wide open room with a surrounding balcony and a stage where all the Junin and the Hokage were standing. At the very back of the room, there was a giant sculpture of a pair of hands set in the ram seal. Naruto thought it looked like a giant had punched through the back wall. Sarutobi began explaining the true purpose of the exam, that it wasn't to promote good relations with other countries or secure relations, but was a replacement for war. That by having the Chunin exams open, it allowed shinobi villages to show their strength without the continent descending into war. Naruto, while knowing it was true, Ibiki having explained the purpose the last time the exams had been held in Konoha. They had gone to watch the finals that year, thought the whole speech was a little overdramatic. He could have at least put a joke in there or something. Finally a sickly-looking Junin appeared in front of the crowd of genin, and informed them that since so many teams passed, they would need to have preliminaries to cut down on the number of participants in the final exam. When he asked if anyone wanted to withdraw, Kabuto raised his hand, citing injuries from the forest, as well as the attack on him from the Sound Trio before the first test. Naruto thought that was particularly fishy, as he could see one person staying in the fight, who had both arms in slings. An electronic board high on the wall flashed as it picked out the first two fighters. Uchiha Sasuke vs. Akadu Yoroi. The two smirked at each other, both knowing that there was no way the other would win. Yoroi knew he would suck the little rookie dry before he got the chance to do anything. Sasuke knew he was bound to win because even though the seal Kakashi put on him was messing up his chakra control so much he was unable to use his fire jutsu to any degree of effectiveness, he was able to activate his Sharingan and use his taijutsu. He wouldn't need anything more for this full. Though he was still a little sore from the sealing process. The match started as soon as the other genin cleared the floor. Yoroi charged straight in on Sasuke, hands glowing with blue chakra. Sasuke activated his dojutsu, but couldn't tell what the technique did, as all he could see the chakra do was funnel back into his coils. After Yoroi got his hands on him, Sasuke figured it out. He could feel his chakra leaving his coils, and knew he had to get away. His opponent was a good grappler, and it took a few seconds to get out of the hold, but in that time, Yoroi took almost half of his already depleted chakra. Naruto saw his teammate struggling, and while he might not like him, he was still his teammate, and would cheer him on. Of course, he dosed his cheers with liberal doses of insults, to make it fun for him. Sasuke smirked as he heard his blonde teammate, and remembered something. The Uchiha threw a few shuriken to distract Yoroi, before he charged him and kicked him high in the air. He jumped up, shadowing Yoroi's arc, directly behind him. Sasuke threw a left hook that Yoroi blocked, only for Sasuke to follow his feint up with a vicious kick to Yoroi's undefended ribs. Before Yoroi could do anything to get out of the way, Sasuke shouted, "Shishi Renden!" Rotated his body and brought down a brutal axe kick on his opponent's chest, sending him careening at the floor, landing with a sickening crunch as his bones broke. Hayate coughed and watched as the medic nins treated Yoroi and eventually took him off to the medical wing. As the genin mumbled to each other about the match, the board started flipping through names again. Eventually, the names stopped and the next match was declared. Nara Shikamaru vs. Tsuchi Kin. Kin jumped over the railing, while Shikamaru just walked sedately down the stairs, grumbling all the way about how he would have to fight troublesome females, and how he couldn't be seen losing to a girl. Ino yelled down some encouragement, as well as a threat to talk to his mom if he lost, giving Shikamaru even more drive to win his match. Kage main no jutsu. Shikamaru started, his shadow stretching out to grab Kin, only for her to dodge it. The Nara clan is well known outside of Konoha. Did you think I would fall for your stupid techniques? Besides, I saw your jutsu in the forest when you used it on the Uchiha. All I need to do is watch your shadow and I'll be fine. Kin punctuated her statement by throwing a pair of senbon with bells attached. Shikamaru dodged, and the needles stuck in the back wall, showing the kind of force they had been thrown with. The bells jingled again and the Nara's vision immediately started to blur. Kin appeared to double and Shikamaru let off a chakra flare to shake himself of the genjutsu. Then he noticed how she was doing it. So, you attached wire to the bells and ring them in order to put people under your illusions. I understand now. Kin scoffed. Just because you know how my technique works doesn't mean you can counter it. Shikamaru smirked. Kage main no jutsu, success. He crowed triumphantly. What are you ta? Kin cut herself off as soon as she found that she couldn't actually move, as she had been caught by the Nara clan's most basic jutsu. I can manipulate my shadow however I wish, within a certain limit. This includes making it thin enough to cover as the shadow of the wire connecting the bells. As he spoke, his shadow widened from a wire-thin line to a more appropriate-sized connection. Shikamaru set his hands in a new seal and declared his win. Kage Kubi Shibari no Jutsu. The shadow crept up Kin's body, a hand forming and Kin started struggling, only to realize it wouldn't do any good. The shadowy hand latched onto Kin's tea, and slowly strangled her. Shikamaru stopped when she went limp and stopped struggling, a sign she was unconscious, as it was really too troublesome to K her. The medics tended to Kin as Shikamaru ambled up the stairs to his team. That was so cool, Naruto praised. I didn't know you could do that with your shadow, I thought it was just that copy me stuff. Shikamaru shrugged. I could have one with just Kage main, but it was just too troublesome. Naruto snickered. Yeah, well it's pretty cool anyway. Kin was taken back up to the balcony and set down with her teammates, as she would be fine shortly. The board shuffled names again and the fighters made their way to the floor as their names were announced. Aberrane Shino vs. Tsurugi Misumi. The fight started out hard and fast, with Misumi charging Shino with a haymaker seed, as the Aberrane stood there impassively. Misumi's fist connected, and for a second, he thought he had won, before he noticed his fist waste inside his opponent's head. Shino wavered, before dissolving into a cloud of bugs that quickly covered Misumi almost from head to toe, cluttering in hard to remove areas. The true Shino walked out of the shadows with his hands in his pockets. You should forfeit now, he advised. My Kikai allies are currently eating away at your chakra, and won't let go until you're completely drained. Misumi smirked behind his face mask. I just have to get rid of these stupid bugs, and then I can take you down. Raten, Reiku Rapu. Lightning Rap. Lightning crackled around Misumi briefly as he chuckled, frying the Kikai, their S and smoking carcasses falling to the floor around him. Oh man, this is gonna be ugly, Naruto said with a grimace. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? Ino asked curiously. That's right, you never spent a lot of time with Shino at the academy, Naruto recalled. Messing with bugs like that guy just did is the worst thing in the world to do in front of Shino. Especially since it was Hino's bugs. 4 eyes there is going down. Kakashi, who had been listening with a wandering ear, spoke up. It's not just Shino, it's fairly characteristic of the Aberrane clan. They don't like it, and should you do it, you're most likely not going to wake up for a while, not at all if you're really an enemy. Shino narrowed his eyes, though the only sign was a slight tightening of the skin around his glasses. Misumi charged him again, only for Shino to catch his badly telegraphed punch and strike him 4 times in the gut before Misumi wrenched himself away, sucking up air desperately. But the Aberrane was having none of that. He moved in and pulled his opponent in close before striking at his elbow in an attempt to break it. Sadly, there was no sickening crunch even though the arm bent the wrong way. Hey, I've had my body modified so it can fit in any space. You'll never be able to break my bones. Shino ignored the comment and struck at Misumi's knee, and while not breaking the joint, made it difficult for the stretchy nin to walk. He followed up with a blow to the back of the N. Misumi leapt back shakily, unsteady on his feet, and looking as though he was about to fall. He went to extend his limbs to try to take advantage of range, but he didn't have the chakra for the maneuver. You may have altered your body, but other than keeping me from breaking your bones, you don't have the chakra to exploit it, Shino explained. What are you talking about? I squashed your stupid bugs, you idiot. Shino drew a kunai. My allies ate your chakra faster than you thought, and before you foolishly ked them, they had already devoured a good deal of your reserves. I've also been putting more of my allies onto your body as I struck you, allies you obviously haven't noticed until now. Misumi's eyes widened and he began the hand seals for his electric technique once more. I wouldn't suggest doing that, Shino said as he walked towards the other genin. Why? Misumi asked, foolishly stopping his hand seals. The cool sharpness of steel slid snug against Misumi's T in response. Because, Shino's voice said into his ear, you've been talking to a genjutsu. The Aberrane in front of Misumi wavered and disappeared as Shino twisted into visibility behind him, holding a kunai to his T. Forfeit, now, he ordered. Misumi hesitantly raised his hand. Proctor, I wish to forfeit. Winner, Aberrane Shino, Hayat coughed. Shino walked sedately up to his team, Naruto complimented him on his match, and asked how his colony was doing. Naruto had learned enough to know that an Aberrane was sensitive about losing their allies, and after such a big hit, he wanted to make sure his friend was okay. My colony has taken a rather large hit, and should I have to fight again, I fear my effectiveness would be greatly diminished. I only have approximately 1/4 of my allies left after that despicable attack. Naruto mentally translated. I better not have to fight again, or I'm screwed. And if I see that bastard again, I'll stomp his ass into the ground again. After Misumi was taken away to be treated for mild chakra exhaustion, Hayat announced the next match. Sabaku no Gaara vs. Kinuta Dosu. Dosu jumped the banister as Gaara appeared in a swirl of sand. Forfeit, or I'll KO, Gaara said, his monotone sounding threatening. Dosu seed his head. No, I think I'll beat you here and now. After a brief bout of taijutsu, during which Gaara didn't even deign to move, simply allowing his sand to block the attacks, Dosu swung his right arm, sound waves emanating from it, attacking Gaara, forcing him wince and bring his hand to his ear. Seconds later, sand formed around his ears to block the sly sounds and looking distinctly like a pair of fluffy, if sandy, earmuffs. Gaara shot his hand out and sand rapidly covered the floor. The blood-scented sand chased after Dosu, who was just barely staying ahead of it, even going all out. Shortly, Dosu was snared by the sand, and covered from head to toe. The Oto Genin was brought in front of Gaara, who was still standing in the same spot he started the match in. Do you yield? Dosu was conflicted. He couldn't think of a way out of the sand, but he knew if he forfeited, Orochimaru would K him. He made up his mind and decided to take his chances with Orochimaru after the match. Surely his leader would understand there was no way to win. A flash of king intent destroyed that thought. It seemed Dosu would have no choice but to continue. No. Sabaku so-so. There was a spray of blood along with a crunching sound, and Dosu was no longer recognizable. His fate had been sealed when he decided to continue, Temari decided. Gaara said he would kill him, and he did. It was that simple. But Gaara was growing, she noticed. He had given his opponents warnings both here and in the forest, whereas before he got the new seal he would have just killed them outright, without any thought to letting them get away. And in the forest, Gaara had even mentioned protecting her and Kankuro as reasons why that guy from Rain was going to And he even let the other two go. He might not be strictly sane, but he was a lot better than before. She would have to find some way thank that blonde kid, Temari resolved, one way or another. After most of the blood was mopped up, the next matchup was shown. Uzumaki Naruto vs. Rock Lee, X. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.